Well, it's Chords and Coffee, and with me today is a new friend. This is Kerry Marshall, and Kerry is a just an awesome human being, great guitar player, really fascinating story, and we've had the opportunity to kind of get to know each other a little bit, and so I'm excited to introduce you to Kerry. Kerry, thanks for being on the show today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us how you started playing guitar, about what age you were, and just some of your guitar journey, because you've got a really fascinating story, because you kind of put it down a little bit and then picked it back up. And the stereotype is you get started playing guitar when you're a kid. And then if you do that, then all these opportunities become available. But that's not necessarily your story. So could you go ahead and just tell us that story?
No problem. So I started playing guitar when I was 11. I was introduced to it. I wasn't like, like some sort of child prodigy or anything like that. Started in church. Wasn't very good to the point to where I remember one specific service, my amp wasn't even on and the organ player was like, "You're too loud." That's how bad I was. It was just, I wasn't very good.
Wait a second. So a guitar player was too loud? I've never heard of that before.
Listen, never heard of it. So I took lessons in high school, just enough to where I could play like some open cowboy chords, enough to just kind of understand the concepts of guitar. After high school, I graduated and I went straight into the military. 9/11 happened shortly afterwards. So my guitar dreams kind of just were stifled because I was in combat arms. So I had to focus in on being a soldier first. Several deployments to Iraq. I was even stationed in Germany for a number of years. And while I was there, I kind of picked it up a little bit, but not enough to where I can kind of just keep myself at the chops that I needed to have. I remember specifically a couple of my last deployments, I had a guitar that kind of helped me. It's musical therapy. And, I had a couple of people like, "Man, you should try out in these talent shows. You never know if you're going to win or whatever." So I tried out, and I believe it was like 2 talent shows, and I won them. And that's what kind of sparked the gift of like, man, when I get out of the Army, I definitely want to try to pursue music at a high level. Fast forward, got out in 2009, moved back home to Alabama, played locally. And then I was gifted an opportunity to come to LA and play at the BET Awards. And while I was in the BET Awards, I was doing sound check. Someone asked where I was from, and I said, "I'm from Alabama." They're like, "Man, if you ever move from Alabama to LA, you'll never stop working." And that just kind of resonated and rung out in my ear. So I needed to make a faith move because I knew like going out there, I was going out there with no friends, no family, whatever the case was. So moved out there. And the first 6 months were probably the hardest. I was 32, so I got a late start in comparison to a lot of my peers. A lot of people that were out there in that industry were fresh out of high school, early 20s. I'm 32 trying to, be in the same waters as them or whatever. And I was gifted a lot of opportunities. I've had the opportunity to work with artists like Tori Kelly, Jason Derulo, Ledisi, Chrisette Michele, Kirk Franklin. I've even worked with the Black Eyed Peas and just a host of others. I've had an opportunity to be on late night TV shows and also in a lot of different publications. So God really opened up a lot of avenues for me because, like the Bible says, your gift will make room for you. So it definitely did that for me. And I was grateful for that.
First of all, thank you for your service. I can tell you right now,
Appreciate
everybody watching Chords and Coffee, just have a tremendous respect for anybody that's, a first responder or military. And so thank you for that. And, you touched on something that is, I don't highlight it enough. I am grateful that I have this thing in my life that allows me to decompress mentally in a way that is not just productive, but it's healthy. And, one of the things that I tell friends of mine, especially, my buddies that are dads that are, getting started playing, it's like your kids need to see you playing and practicing, and they need to see you interacting with music in the way where it is actually, for lack of a better term, therapy, because they will have that same need in their own life at some point. It doesn't have to be, induced by, the trauma that comes from, protecting our country or something like that. Life will present some challenges, I assure you, that will mandate some kind of escape. And to find a healthy one like this is probably one of the best reasons to pick up playing guitar. And to hear you say that, that's really cool. I mean, so you have a family, right? Are you dad? Tell me about
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about your family.
Yeah, so I call my kids the Fantastic Four. I have 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl, and they definitely, keep me occupied and keep me grounded. because now my son is 16, about to be 17. He's definitely at a space where he can kind of keep me grounded and be like, I mean, Dad, you're cool, but you're not that cool. So it's just, it keeps me humble, whatever, kind of keeps me young.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you're Family Guy. You're playing a lot, and I see you, especially on Instagram. And gosh, you got over 200,000, 200, was that 220,000, maybe 221,000 followers on Instagram, right? Right. So I haven't looked or anything. No, but that's great. And, that's not easy to do. That's indicative of somebody who's out there doing the deal. What, if you could, I know it's a lot, but like when I ask you, what are some tips that you have for just the balance of that between being present at home, but then also being present at this job? Because in this life playing guitar, I mean, you could get a gig in the next 30 minutes that could completely change your schedule. How do you maintain balance and all that?
I think now, especially now in this part of my career, I'm at a place where I can pick and choose. But before, where I had to really go a lot, I did miss a lot of opportunities to be around my kids because I had to, like you said, take a gig. Sometimes you're on the road for such and such amount of time. I would try to make the times that I was down to try to spend as much time with them. And also when I was doing certain guitar things, I think even on my YouTube stuff, I had my sons earlier on, do my intro for me, so they could feel like they were part of the process versus Dad plays guitar and he's just kind of isolated from us. I wanted to try to include them as much as possible in the process. Even with my daughter, I take my acoustic with me sometimes and we're playing together. She can't play, but she'll just sit there, guitar, she's turning 3. So she understands the concept of Daddy plays guitar. They know what that is. So I think the balance of it is don't exclude them from the opportunity, make them try to be involved as much as possible, whether that be oh, we got to pack. What should I wear? What do you think I should wear while I'm on stage? You already have an idea. You can just kind of help them to A/B, should I wear this shirt or should I wear this shirt? Should I wear these shoes? So they feel a part of the process versus you're kind of excluding them away. This one thing that Dad does takes him away from us versus it's an inclusive kind of thing. I think that's kind of the way you find balance.
That's beautiful. And I just want to repeat that because that was a real nugget of wisdom. You realize that your schedule can change on the drop of a dime. And so you maximize the moments that you have by including your family in all of those aspects of the process of that, whether it's picking out the cool stage shirt or just having a guitar right there. I love that. And when you said that, I thought I need to do that more, even though, I mean, I'm not at the level you are in terms of, touring and playing out there, but certainly my job requires a lot of me. And so just including kids in the process of getting ready, not only does it teach them that this is part of life, but also it gives them some ownership in that. That's really good.
Right.
It's really good. So speaking of, cool shirts and cool stuff, let's talk about gear for a second. We initially got connected through a mutual friend, Johnny at LSL. Mm-hmm. And obviously you're a guitar player and you probably have a handful of guitars, right?
I've got a few.
Yeah. And I see a couple back there. So I'd love to hear about your LSL and just maybe even about that connection. Yeah. So go ahead.
So this is my LSL. It's my custom Sadako. Just Johnny helped me build this one. Her name is Bella. So essentially what happened was I got connected with Johnny. I believe it was at NAMM. Somebody just walked me over to the booth and we were just kindred spirits, the way we communicated, the way we connected, not only just on guitar playing, but our faith. And so Johnny was like, man, come down to the shop. I went down to the shop, met Lance, got a chance to walk around, pick the woods and kind of, just really talk about the idea of what I wanted to build. And just, it was a very hands-on approach. And then Johnny has not just become our artist relation rep, but a friend, a true friend. We text each other scriptures, we pray. Sometimes there's different things that we have to do. So I'm really big on relationships and building relationships. So just to know that I got connected with a brand initially, but then also I found brotherhood and I found the partnership, which was really amazing. So yeah, this Sadako, I've used it on stage for a lot of different artists, a lot of different recordings. It's been really great. People love the stress, how old is that guitar? Not realizing I got it built that way. I told Johnny initially, I was I wanted to feel like it fell off the back of a pickup truck, and kind of got drugged for 20 miles, and they nailed it. So just the aesthetic of the instrument plus and coupled with the sound, it has been amazing. So I'm very grateful for that relationship.
Oh yeah. And Look, I love relic guitars.
Yeah.
I know there's so many hot take opinions on that. You know, to me, life is just too short to not have exactly the guitar that you want to have. And if it's not an inspirational instrument, just get rid of it. And store it. And when I pick up a guitar that feels like it's sort of already broke in, I don't know, that inspires me more. You know, an interesting thought, you know, and I hope this doesn't come off as a morbid thing, but you know, I was playing one day and I just had this thought. I was like, you know, this guitar will probably be around longer than I am. And this is
true.
a sword for a quest, right?
Yeah.
And then when I am complete with my quest, then that sword will go to someone else. And so, you know,
that's very true.
When we talk about the feel part of a guitar, how it feels, and also how it makes us feel, that's a big deal. And it's not, I don't think it's something to be downplayed. And obviously you kind of have to be playing for a little bit
to understand that.
Yeah. And to appreciate it. And also even to have a sense of what you like, you know, but no, I love that. So, playing the Sadakoi, what are you amp guy? Do you use a line direct solution? Cause I know you probably fly around a lot, use both. Are you pedals? You know, just talk about gear for a second.
All right. So for me, I morphed. I started out in all-in-ones. That's all I used to have. And then like being in LA, you start to realize how important gear is. So I really got into stomp boxes, and I can't even tell you countless pedal boards that are in like my studio right now. And I realized traveling with TSA, they used to just rip my boards apart. So it was just very frustrating. I'm not the most tech savvy guy. I know what I want and just when it's put together, but like trying to, you know, connect the wires and daisy chain and what's the chain, whatever, I would just get frustrated. So I remember specifically, I was on one tour, which is a flight aid tour, where we didn't take a bus, we just flew everywhere. And TSA was just like butchering my board every time. And I remember I spent like 45 minutes.
Wait a second. I want to make sure I understand. You're literally going through and like the line at the airport, and they're taking your pedal board apart to make sure it's not like some sort of
bombs. Yeah. And it was just very frustrating. They would, you know, unplug pedals, go underneath, unscrew it. And so I just got very frustrated. So I realized that this isn't going to work for me, because I kept trying to call, you know, sometimes we had tech, sometimes we wouldn't have a tech, trying to call a tech on the phone, depending on the time change, and be like, hey, so this one goes from this, like the compression goes to this. Like it just became frustrating. So I was like, I got to figure out something else. Around that time, I believe Line 6 dropped the Helix. And I was like, essentially this, I can have as many pedal boards wrapped into one. So I became a Helix guy. So I've been with the Helix now for maybe the last 4 or 5 years, and I've had phenomenal responses. People love my tone because you can go direct out and you can still go to an amp. I'm endorsed with Bad Cat, so I played the Lynx 50. I'm a huge fan of that, and I've recently fallen back in love with the Vox AC30, because one of my primary guitars that I use is the PRS Fiore, was Mark Lettieri's signature model. And those two paired together is that tone. What I can get out of that amp with that guitar is just, it's next level. So I kind of use that every now and then. If I'm not able to get like a Bad Cat on my rider, I go to the Vox, and I've been very grateful. So I've realized within my career, certain guitars pair better with certain amps. And before I didn't know that. I just thought you just plug and play and you're twisting on knobs all day. I realized that, you know, in my journey that sometimes a Mesa Boogie with the Strat or with my Sadakoi is butter in my hands. But sometimes if I try to put that same Sadakoi with like a DeVille, doesn't sound the same. I can make it work. But, you know, on some of these gigs where you got to play over an hour, you don't want to make it work. You want to find that right tone, so the way people, like, they know exactly what you're feeling. It can kind of like translate through the equipment that you're using. So it's really important to kind of find what nuances really work for you.
Yeah. I mean, gear and tone and all of that, it's almost like you have to pursue that with the equal measure that you pursue scales and chord vocabulary. And I realize in saying this, I just feel this right now. Somebody out there is watching this and going, too much emphasis on gear, you know, just plug in and play. And I get that. And there's some truth in that. There really is.
Yeah.
However, you know, so I started when I was 16. I'm 47 now. And I've heard a lot of guitar players, and I can tell you, I've heard some really fantastic technical players who even though their technique is there, even though their aptitude on the instrument is obvious, it's also obvious sometimes that they haven't spent enough time in the realm of dialing in tone. And I don't say that
Right.
as an expert pontificating on my throne of tone righteousness. I say that just as I'm in pursuit of that. That's something I really care about, is having great tone. And like you know, that's why, I mean, there's a lot of players, who I love, who I feel like while there's somebody that can play faster and all that kind of stuff, their tone is just outrageously awesome. And that's why I'm drawn to them. Speaking of which, tell us about some of your
Exactly.
influences, and who are some of the players that, if you were to take all these players and put them in a blender and the concoction that comes out is Kerry Marshall, who's that?
That's a great question. All right, so a lot of my players may not be on a lot of people's radar because I play specifically like a gospel R&B kind of a overall thing. So for me, I would start out with Chalmers Spanky Alford was one of the guys who originally, I mean, from Huntsville, Alabama. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. So, hometown kind of like, connection with that. John Jubu Smith is one of my
Oh,
favorite. Eric Walls, Tim Stewart, Sean Hinton, Mark Lettieri. I even like guys like Chris Payton, Justice West. Who else?
Justice,
Uh,
he's originally from Kansas City area, right?
yes, yeah,
Missouri guy.
phenomenal. Like, I mean, he does
Yeah.
stuff that I can't do. So, but I'm inspired by the way that he plays. I met Mateus a few years ago. Mateus became a good friend of mine. I'm inspired by his playing.
Oh yeah.
Andy Wood out of Nashville. That guy is phenomenal.
Yeah, and he's
There's so many
a
different guitar
mandolin player
players.
first, right? I mean,
Yes, yeah,
yeah, yeah, he's a monster
yeah.
player. Yeah.
I believe his name is Sean Tubbs. I follow him on Instagram. Just watching the way that he articulates and intentionality with that instrument is just phenomenal. Tom Quayle, a
Mhm.
lot of these guys that I'm naming out, like I can't play what they play, but I'm inspired by some of the stuff that they do. So it definitely keeps me in the woodshed. Those just to name a few. Like I mean, just to name a few. John Mayer, of course. You got guys like BB King, Albert King, and just a lot of people that are just. I feel like my playing is like a pot of gumbo. It's just a little piece of everything that I try to fuse together to have my own style.
So when it comes to playing with intention, and playing with um, the right dialect, the right inflection, what kind of advice, what kind of tips would you give somebody to scale that mountain?
So even when it comes to like the minor pentatonic scale, right? I did a lesson last week, a masterclass on how to solo, and it's not being so staccato, right? We know the numbers, like we're playing the little rhythm and the pattern, but it's about trying to be as more fluid. So if you think about water, if you pour water over anything, it's just the way that it goes into whatever space it needs to go into is just really fluid. So what I tell people and just students in general, just rehearse those lines as much as possible to the way you can do it with your eyes closed, to where you can feel the note, you can sense where it's supposed to be, and then you want to work on inflection, whether that be a little bit of vibrato in your fingers, or that be like the inflection of how you speak, the cadence in which you speak with. You want to work on that. So playing with the metronome will help you with like the times and the rhythms of the way you're able to play around certain things and to play within that certain space. It's something that I talk about as well as playing with feel. If you don't understand what that means, it's just like if you listen to John Mayer has a great thing where he does like a lot of kind of ghost rhythms with his thumb whenever he's playing, especially with acoustic. You want to mimic that until you find your own way that you are able to do it, and then try to do that over and over and over again. If you can kind of repeat that methodology, I think you kind of land on something that sticks.
I love that. You know what's funny? I don't know if you were like this, but when I was when I was getting started and I started to really take note of, bands and things like that. I mean, I can remember being, a teenager. And at that time, Guns N' Roses was like the biggest band in the world. Right.
Yeah.
And so my dad actually carried me to see Guns N' Roses with Soundgarden opening for them in Memphis, Tennessee at the Pyramid.
Wow.
It was a life-changing experience, But at that time,
Right.
in my mind, I'm a lead guitar player. Right. And rhythm was like, if you can't play guitar very good, rhythm guitar is available for you. You know what I mean? That's how I felt.
Right. Exactly.
But what's hilarious is now, gosh, what, 30 some odd years later, I realized, man, rhythm as a musician, it's honestly my biggest opportunity for improvement. Another way to say that, weakest link, just to be vulnerable, right? But also, I mean, it is the thing that if you really want to be a great soloist, have great rhythm, and you never stop playing.
True.
And in fact, it's like the thing that, you think about. There's, and I don't want to get into naming names, but we can all think of great players who don't have probably the best, music theory vocabulary, but they are phenomenal when it comes to keeping the pocket protected, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So what you're saying is just the gospel truth. It's just have great rhythm. And how do you develop rhythm? Well, metronome, playing with other people. We just did a Dave Weckl clinic not too long ago, and it was really awesome to hear him talk about, not just drums, but just music in general. And he had a really great thing that he said about get to where you can sing what it is you want to play. And he was talking about, singing, instead of going, and singing it like that, like singing it, and putting like feeling into it.
It makes a difference. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It makes a difference. And I'll tell you why. Even when I solo, right, people talk about how like it sounds like you're singing with the instrument, because in my head I'm going through these melodies and I practice. Sometimes I'll tell my students, like, it may be dumb to you, but like I'll hum out the melodies first and then I'll find those lines on the guitar, and I want to try to make it sound as almost as if I'm singing, right? Yeah. And the more you can do it, it translates, like you said, what Dave Weckl was saying, it translates when you're playing the instrument. You can feel the rhythm, the cadence of even how you breathe, the spaces where you're supposed to slide into certain notes. Oh, no, I want to land on that note. It'll be more staccato. Okay, I want to slide into those notes. I want to trill. I want to vibrato. All of those things make a difference. So yeah, I second that. I'm telling you, like I do that all the time when I'm coming up with my solos, and I have to develop them. But I've done it so much now to where if I'm on the fly, I can do it because I've been practicing it for so long. But if I have to like map it out, I definitely want to find the sing-song like line, the melody, so that I can just stick it in there and you feel what I'm saying and then understand for those, whether it be 8 bars, 16 bars, whatever the case may be, you're feeling what I'm saying in that with the instrument at the time.
I love that. All right. Well, a couple more questions for you. Number one, somebody's watching this and they're just getting started playing guitar, and they might be at a point of where they're looking at just their life and go, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Right.
How would you encourage them to keep going?
I would tell them, like, you know what? It may be a challenge in the beginning, but stay with it. And the reason why I tell you to stay with it, but take it in small doses, right? Realize this is a marathon and not a sprint. And the more you can kind of make it understand that, like, you take small goals and you're going to accomplish your goal, but stay with it. It's number one, like we talked about before, it's therapeutic. If you find yourself in a space and you don't know how to articulate what you're feeling, the instrument will speak for you. You'll find yourself in a space where sometimes you can't talk to somebody else. Music will definitely come there, and it'll resonate. It'll ease your soul. So stay with it. Don't get determined. Don't get frustrated and get discouraged in it, but just stay with it. I promise you, it's a marathon and not a sprint. You'll definitely get to the place you want to get with it.
I love that. Now, one more. I can tell you, we've sort of talked about, family and lots of things, but I'd love to just give you the opportunity. There's somebody that you know in your life that might be watching this right now, and who would you just express some gratitude and just offer thanks for just that person being in your life?
It starts with my wife, number one, and then my kids. And I'll tell you why. It's a group effort. I realized that I can't do what I do by myself. Even when it comes to the business aspect of her helping me with getting my invoices together, and I had to do various things. Like, there's so many things behind the scenes that she does in order to ensure that I'm good at what I do. And even when I have moments when people don't see that I'm discouraged and I'm hitting a rut, or I'm not really sure, I'm not confident in my abilities because I went out for this and I may not have gotten it, or I'm up for this position. And when it comes to music, I'm not sure if I'm going to get it. Like, when the Bible says a help me, like, she's definitely that. So I would say her, because she does so many things behind the scenes. And my kids, I would say secondly, because each one of them is able to pour and fill my cup up. Like, with them, I'm just dad. I don't have to be the guy on stage. I get to just be dad. I get to take off my cape and be regular. And if we're just, out getting something to eat or just talking about life, whatever the case is, they're able to just make me realize that, like, I'm still important. Because there was a time when I was so concerned, like, if I don't have a job where I'm playing on stage with somebody, I'm not valued. and they just made me realize that you're valued regardless of if you have an instrument in your hand or not. So I would say that those are like the core people that definitely make me see that, like, regardless if I can never play again, I'm still somebody that's worth loving. I'm still somebody that's important, and they're always here for me. And they have my back.
Oh, I love that. And man, boy,
Yeah.
howdy. What you just said about if you're not playing on stage or you don't have, the gig, how you feel worthless. In my own life, I've referred to that as shiny penny syndrome. I feel like I have to be somebody's shiny penny,
Yeah.
And if I'm not shiny enough, then I'm just something you might find on the ground, and, thank God for people in your life who can just remind you, look you in the eyes and say, you are enough.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing
I don't
that.
think people understand how far that goes. I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. Encouragement's a powerful thing, and I'm a big believer in it. It's marked my life, and honestly, I think that's why I'm here. So, Kerry, you know what? You're a good man.
Thanks. So are you, man. I'm
Thank
grateful
you.
that you're using your platform to touch as many lives as you're doing, because somebody's going to hear this and they may be in a space where they're just at a low space and they don't know what else to do. And just this podcast alone and this interview alone is definitely going to help encourage them. So, man, shouts out to you. Keep doing what you do. You're touching more lives than you can probably actually see and know that you're affecting, because a lot of times people watch these, they may never comment, but you're changing their lives. So don't give up. Don't quit.
Well, thank you for saying that, and I would love it if somebody out there right now, you're watching this and you're like, man, I got, I've taken the Kerry Marshall pill and I'm addicted. I need more. Where can they find your information on, like, what's your Instagram account, or where should they go if they want to hear more from you and just kind of follow you in all your adventures?
Yeah. So everything for me is always Kerry Too Smooth. It's KERRY, the number 2 SMOOTH. So on Instagram, on YouTube, and I also give lessons if you want to think about maybe joining some of the stuff that we have, because we have this amazing community with right now, I believe we have over 700 students worldwide. It's called Kerry's Camp.
Wow.
So you can go check it out. It's KERRYSKAMP.com. And it's just a community. It's a safe space where you can come, you can play guitar. There's no judgment, regardless of your age, background, whatever it is. We just love to just get together and talk about guitar and just empowering each other. So yeah, I would love for people to follow me. I'm one of these people, like, you think like, oh, he won't see the message. I see the message. I respond. I'm that guy. So don't feel intimidated when you come on and you reach out.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this today. And Kerry, I don't know if you know this or not, but the people that make up the community of Chords and Coffee are the most encouraging guitar players on the face of the internet. We have something that we say, it's like, we are living life doing the best we can with the guitar in our hand. And
I love it.
Yeah. And I'm really grateful that we had this time. You just said some wonderful things, and I would love to have you back on. I'd love to have you in person at some point. So maybe we can talk about that and work that out.
Okay.
But in the meantime, thanks again for doing this. Thanks everybody for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Be sure to follow Kerry on all the social media platforms. And we will see you again next Saturday morning, 9 a.m. for another Chords and Coffee.